Let's
Yeah.
go to the next. Let's go to the next one. Next video here. Now, I'm gonna. For those who are listening, this is the Bellevue Hill job.
Yeah.
Now, this is what, if you've seen on the Instagram, the photos that Nick was doing, this is like a geometry masterclass.
Good
Basically,
garden.
someone has designed this. Do you know who the designer was?
Miles Baldwin did it. Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
the thing
Very
about
formal
this
garden.
is very formal. It's like a contemporary artwork, basically.
Yeah. Well, even that
not what-
Santolina, you can see that grey plant there. That's actually a parterre. It's got pavers crisscrossing that garden. So if you look at it,
Yeah.
I think some of the photos are from above, you can see the pattern, which is cool. But this is actually a good example of that measure or cut multiple times, because I'll go over that particular hedge in this video 3 times. I think it's 3 times. You cut it twice, blow it off, and then your final cut.
And you're doing a very similar thing by doing your diagonal runs. And I think what I would have done, so to describe, we've got this very long hedge here that is, now let me describe the garden to the listeners as best as possible. There is paving, there are very straight walls, there are so many reference points that you cannot get away with this not being straight. One of the things when you're doing hedging, I've found is that I like hedges that are bendy, like nice big curves, because they're so much more forgiving for tiny little mistakes. When you've got a hedge that is got dead straight paving next to it, you will notice when it's not. Now, I have found for me that when I've also got the dead straight paving, you have a guide to go against, right?
Yeah.
So your vertical can be straight. Okay, I understand that. We've just talked about doing the verticals. What is insane about this, right? And this is coming from someone with a lot of experience with hedging, is the wall is rendered. There is no bricks to go off. There's nothing else to go off. So this is all in your technique. And when you have a look at how flat this is, it looks as flat and as geometrical as the paving themselves or the tiles themselves.
Well, I always start on a corner. I don't, unless there's a really big bow in the hedge, I'll start on the high point. But if it's really flat like that, I always start from left to right, and then it's just because just the way I like to do it. But I'll go through and take off probably 85% of the growth on that first one. Then I'll run back over it again, just to bring, because it was really thick that day. I'll blow it off and then give it its final finish. But I don't like to do. I like to do big sweeps when I'm trimming the top of the hedge. I can feel the hedge better. I can feel what I'm doing with my body. I don't like to do little cuts and flick the growth off. I've taught myself not to worry about the growth that's sort of going over the top of the hedger. I want to try and get one of those scoops, so you can scoop it and flick it off. But I learned to one tip. When you're going from left to right, I'll tilt the hedger blade just slightly in the direction that I'm going.
Right.
It seemed I seem to get a better cut, and it turns it sort of semi into a scoop as well. So I try not to focus on the growth.
So for those listening, when he's saying tilting, he's done a hand angle, right? And so what he's meaning is he's dipping the front edge of the hedger in towards the angle that he's going. Is that right?
Yeah, not too much. You're only talking a mil, just a slight tilt in the direction you're going. So I'll tilt it to the right when I'm going to the right, tilt it to the left, I'm going to the left. I just found I got a better cut with doing that. I don't know if it was just in my head or not, but.
Well, I think these are those things where it's like art and science. There might not be necessarily a description of how you understand it, but it's just feel. It's just a feel.
Yeah, it's a lot by feel. And another thing that I'm trying not to. It took me a long time to force myself not to do it. Is as you get to the edge of the hedge, there's the resistance obviously drops off because you're not on the hedge anymore.
Yeah.
So I tended to roll as I came off the hedge. I rolled off the hedge. And that lost that crisp, sharp edge then. You see, I'm trying to come out and stay at that same level as I exit the top of the hedge. If anything, I'm I've taught myself to sort of slightly come up as I come off the hedge, just so I know that I'm not going to dip off the end of it. Because that's where you get, instead of it being nice and flat, you get that sort of wavy edge.
Yes. I can see it. So one of the things I can see is, no, but because you're coming at a 45-degree angle when you come off the hedge. So for those listening, he's doing these long sweeping motions, and they are on a 45-degree angle.
And a lot of the time, I try and keep some part of the hedge blade on the hedge. Yeah. I don't like to get completely off it as much as I can. Half the time, it's just, you're just going through the motions, and I don't really think about it. But now when I look back at videos, I notice that I try and keep at least, say, the tip of the blade on the hedge.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to use the entire length of the blade. Sometimes I'm only focusing on certain sections of the blade as I go along. Like closest to the hedger, I'm focusing on that bit, and I'm slightly tilting the blade up. And then the next pass, I'm bringing it down and blending it in to where I want to be.
Yes. Well, I'm going to describe what I'm seeing going on here.
It's only fine movements doing that. I mean, you might not be able to see it on videos, but it's just a feel that I've come to learn over time.
Well, here's what I've noticed watching it is there's three things I find interesting. The first thing is that you start off very slow, and then you get into this groove. And now you're going on a diagonal angle from top to bottom. You're starting on the right of the screen,
going back to that same point at the tip.
Yeah.
I'll go
now,
back
what
to
happens
that same
here is you then cut it back. You're going now bottom to top, the other direction.
Yeah, so that was mainly just to take some of the growth off and then get any of the loose bits that missed on that first pass. And then I blow it off just to get any of the debris on top, the leaf debris. And then I'll probably, with that third pass, I'm not really taking too much off. It's just when it was that thick, I take it down slowly to the height that I want it. So that last one, I'm only taking tiny amounts off, but it's just fine tuning the levels. And then I'm feeling it as I'm going. If there's any dips, I can feel it in the hedger.
So what I'm going to describe here is you've gone left to right diagonal, right to left diagonal on the other way back. You've now blown down the whole top of the hedge, and you're going to do a final cut. And that seems to be the process of this video. So when you're blowing it down, I would just assume that you're getting rid of the mess that can sort of give a false indication of where you need to cut and where you don't.
Yeah, and you see the bits that those first two cuts, as you blow it, you're loosening it up a bit, so you get some leaf just popping back up.
Yeah.
And when it's that thick, it's always going to be some bits that pop up just from the weight of you blowing the leaves off. But some of the other videos that you'll see, I think after, there wasn't much growth, so I'm not having to do that as much.
Have you ever been tempted to lie on the hedge? It looks like a bed.
I have. I have. Yeah.
I'm looking at it now, going, I wonder what that feels like.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that the guy that owns that, he was, I don't know if you can see it in one of the later videos. There's a little hedge, and apparently someone was drunk and walked up and walked down the stairs because it's actually sunk in this area, and he stepped straight through the edge of the hedge, and I think he fell into the next one. And that was the same thing that happened at Merribee, because they do weddings there. They had these massive balls, and someone pissed obviously, fell into it, and you can see the outline of the person into the balls, but it all recovers luckily. But
it is a plant, so thankfully they do. But that's funny that they've got like the imprint.
It wasn't too much damage, luckily. But
it's reminding me of that Homer Simpson meme. You know how he
goes back into the hedge.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one here. A few of these different videos, we've got very similar techniques being shown. So we might just talk through this, but it's the same thing for those watching. I mean,
this time I'm actually going right to left. I think
but it's the same idea.
Like you're switching it up.
Well, you're starting on the angle, and it's nice and flat. You've always got one bit of your hedger touching the hedge. Very slow, smooth movements. This is not a hyperlapse. The other one was, so we can see it a bit more.
I'm
I'm
just trying to do long long sort of sweeping movements.
Now
I find I get a better finish that way as well. If I instead of just doing little trims and then coming back and flicking it off, coming back, flicking it off, I keep losing the height. So I try to keep the hedger on there and just do long movements and slowly bring the height to where I want it.
Yep. That's the after photo there. And we've got, I guess this is a few more here of that same technique there. Just
sweeping, diagonal, sort of arched movement.
Because what I would have done is, like, before we watch this video, I would have just gone like straight. You know what I mean? Like straight across the hedge, and just hope for the best, basically. And tried to take off the entire width of the cutter in one pass, or the entire width of the hedge.
You can see on this bit, I'm only taking off the end few inches. I'm only cutting with the end few inches. You can see there.
Yeah, like 10 centimeters of cut. But
you're so I'm only focusing on a small part at any one point.
But I think what's happening as well is because you're doing that, you're actually. Not that you're actually cutting much, but you're going over the last 500 mil of your hedger is probably cutting the tiniest bits that were maybe pricked back up again from your last.
Yeah, it is. Part. And then I can know that, I'm looking at the bit that's cut out, peripheral vision. I'm seeing that that's all level across the blade to the top of the hedger. So then I know that's level. And then that a bit that I'm cutting with that end few inches is going to be good as well. Instead of tilting, I'm not doing that too much. I'm not tilting the hedger too much. I'm trying to keep it as level as I can.
I'm looking at this thinking I would get nervous where you are right now on the tip, on the edge. I would get nervous like on that last corner right there. Like the corner.
That's why I try and keep some of the hedger, or at least half of the front half, the end of the bit of the hedger on there. So I'm only cutting with a small bit at the back.
Yeah,
you can see on that last bit I was tilting the hedger then.
Yes, I just did see that. But there we go. Look, there it is.
There.
You're tilting down. Now, but what I was getting at is there's these beautiful square or rectangle, but the square 90-degree angles, and he's just clipping off. He's coming towards the edge of the very corner of the the hedge, and I'm like, imagine if you slipped there. Imagine if it's been a long day, you haven't got your electrolytes up, and your hamstring cramps. That's a bad.
Well, the other side of that garden, the parallel end. I mean, that they're probably that again in depth. They're probably double that in square. Those ones are square. I don't think you can actually see them in any of these videos, but they're on my page. We're trying to keep something that's, I think they're close to probably 2.5, 3, probably close to 3 meters wide square hedges with a tree in the middle. So trying to keep something that wide level is tricky.
I mean, and
that really hurts your back.
Well, this is what I was going to get at, because you're bent at. Now, I've got back issues. I honestly could not do this. Do you? Come on.
Yeah. It's just, physio helps, but then switching it up, like I probably did those two that you can see in that video, and then went on to the balls that are on top of the wall, because then everything's up sort of, chest height, and I probably mucked around with a ball over there. Then I came back to it and then did a ball and come back. So I wasn't doing that all day. I sort of switched it up, and I know when I went back to help Nick with that job, it's a few months ago now, and we did the same thing. We sort of did one hedge, go do a ball, come back and do a bit more hedge, go do another ball. So you can mix it up and sort of move your body around a bit.
Yeah. Well, I find with my condition that I can't do long. I can do a full day at my own pace when I'm doing lots of small jobs. And most of what we do is lawn care. But when I find I'm doing the bigger jobs or in the same place for the whole time, like I need that sit down, and I need that sort of, do you often have those little breaks? Like you just sit down, scroll your Instagram for 5 minutes, give yourself a break, listen to the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast.
That's I'm doing that while I'm trimming you, so that's why I have the earmuffs on.
Yeah.
But no, I do switch it up a lot and have breaks, and Because otherwise, if you're just trying to rush through it and get it done, you'll end up throwing a disc or pulling a muscle, and you're not good to anyone.
Hey, if you love the podcast, jump on our Patreon. It's the Patreon to keep this podcast going. The link is in the YouTube description.